Hey everyone, in today's video I am going to show you another trick in the Slav, and then obviously we will at some moment move on to more serious lines and games. So in this game Fridman is playing against Nigalidze, so both are very strong players. So Nigalidze at the time of the game is rated 2494, so like very strong. c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight d2, and bishop f5. So this is this other bishop move which is very often played. And now we play knight h4. So this is our idea. And now black has many moves with the bishop. It can go to e4 mainly. That's the main line in the course. There is bishop e6, and there is obviously bishop g6. What was played in this current game. And bishop g6 in itself is not yet a horrible mistake or anything like that, but it's already a sign that black is most probably not that familiar with this rare opening which we are playing here with white. So now we play queen b3, and now the most natural move is already a serious mistake for black. And I don't know exact percentages at this from this position, but I am sure that queen b6 is played at least 50% of the times, but probably more in this position. So what is good here for black? Probably, I mean, queen c7 should be played, but it's already not ideal. So normally queen b3 should be met by queen b6. This queen c7, just to give you some small ideas that, for example, if at some moment white takes on g6, hg, and plays some queen c2, then this queen can be exposed on c7 a little bit, or we just play with g3, bishop g2, and eventually when the knight moves, the bishop can come to f4, for example. So in general, it's already a little bit of an issue for black to put the queen on c7. So therefore, it's extremely logical to play queen b6. Everything looks completely safe for black, but here comes a surprise, basically another opening trick. In this opening is queen h3. So thanks to the knight being developed to d2 and not to c3, the third rank is open, and the queen is actually creating through two very huge threats like queen c8 and if queen d8, then of course b7 pawn is hanging, and the other one, which is a little bit more unusual, of course, is that knight takes g6 is a threat since the pawn from the h file cannot take back thanks to the hanging position of the rook. So basically, it's already big trouble for black as early as move 7. So knight b to d7 was played. So black obviously has to prevent queen c8, knight g6, fg6, and e3. So after 9 moves, white has the 2 bishop advantage, and black's structure is seriously damaged. And also, thanks to that, there are some very weak squares as well. So this position, I don't remember exactly the current number in the mega database, but something like 46, 47 games reached this position, and nobody found the best continuation for black, simply because, you know, first, if you get into this position, you don't want to get into it, so the chances of being prepared at this moment are very low. And the second reason is that it's very difficult to find this and super counterintuitive. So what black would like to do is to somehow finish development. Therefore, short long castle sorry is the most common move, but it's very bad. There was even a game of Gata Kamsky in this position. He played with king f7, which you know, understandable, but it will not help black's position at all. In this game it was c5, but the correct move and the only move which gives fighting chances for black, in my opinion, is e5. So, you know, white has the pair of bishops. Black wants to castle, and black opens his king with e5. So, and after d5, you know, which looks like a straight refutation, since knight takes on e5 is not possible because queen e6 is picking up the knight. And then black has this surprising move of knight e4, and yeah, again, it's a playable position for. I mean, black is much worse, of course, but it's a game, so it's he doesn't have to resign or anything. So if you take on e4, then there is d4, and you know he's trying to use this bishop b4 check to create counterplay. So actually, I looked briefly at this position, and I figured probably best is just to play a3. I believe it's not the first choice of the computer, but you know it looks easiest to me just to prevent this bishop before, and you know eventually finish development with bishop d3 and so on, and just have a great position. So another move, what I said is the most common. It's long castle, and now e5 again will be at some moment an idea for black, but that is a very unpleasant move in my opinion to face this queen e6. So basically stalemating black's king side, and at some moment we are going to play c5. Actually, this moment will be very soon probably, and then just push b4, b5, start attacking there. There is not much black can do. So in this game it was c5, trying to seek some counterplay for the verse structure. So white took, knight c5, c d5. I mean, very logical play. So knight d5 and bishop c4, developing with the tempo. Everything is great. e6, short castle. So white finished development, still has the pair of bishops, and still has this structural advantage. Bishop e7. And now I would recommend you to stop the video. There is an instructive continuation here for white, and that's actually the only one which gives huge advantage. Other moves, of course, like every move gives an advantage here for white pretty much, but there is only one move which gives a very significant pretty much winning position for white at this moment. So the move is not illogical. I mean, we have the pair of bishops, so we would prefer an open position, and black is yet to complete his development because the king is still in the center, and we have this very strong move b4. So basically forcing the issue, and so let's see how black can react. So if queen takes on b4, then there is rook b1, so rook is coming with the tempo. Queen goes to c3, for example, we give a check, so king stays in the center, and knight f3. And basically moves like bishop b2 followed by knight e5. e6 pawn will be a target. I mean, it's already a target, and probably black's king will face huge issues. This is just very bad. Knight b4 is not much better because we can simply pin the knight, and there is no good way for black to get out of it. We can play queen a5, but then we play bishop b2. g7 pawn is hanging, and we want to take there. So let's say black castles, bishop c3, knight a4, and now we can pick up a piece by a forced and relatively easy sequence of queen e6, king h8, take g7, take e7, and the knight is hanging back on b4. So capturing this pawn is definitely not advisable, but that is not really a good advice. I mean, of course, the third remaining move is just to go back with the knight to d7. And here I like the computer's suggestion quite a lot. It's bishop to b3. It's a pretty smart move, basically saying that, okay, we are opening ideas like knight c4, for example, and black cannot castle yet because then we take with the bishop on d5, ed, and queen d7. So now bishop b4, and since the bishop left e7 square, then we go now knight f3. So ideas like knight g5 hitting both h7 and e6 is are very unpleasant. And after knight f6, knight g5, it's again on the verge of a complete collapse. Bishop b2 or rook b1 can be next. We are also not giving up on e4 ideas. For example, I guess if black castles e4 looks super strong position, is winning for white here. So this b4 move was really special and not illogical. So yeah, it's just a very strong for white. Instead, knight b3. Of course, as I said, it's not giving up the advantage, but also not winning right away. So knight takes on b3, bishop b3, short castle, and e4. So very logical, opening the way for the bishop, kicking this knight, which is covering this weakness on e6. And basically, okay, wherever black goes, white can win material. In the game, black choose knight f4. So other move is, of course, knight c7 to protect on e6. And now bishop e3 we play, bishop c5. We take queen c5. And here it's again pretty instructive moment, so we can choose between two completely different type of game. So first one is to take the material, but give some activity for black. And the second one is just to keep black suffering with equal material. And I definitely agree with computer's choice that it's better to not take the material, but just let this knight on c7 suffer for, no reason. So if he would take on e6, then after knight e6 takes, king h8, for example, queen b3, rook d8. I mean, we have a clear pawn up, but black is very active. So sometimes rook d2 can be played. Of course, black structure is not perfect and everything, but there are certain drawing chances. So if we get into a rook endgame or a queen endgame, I mean, there are some drawing chances. It's not that easy to convert this position. And okay, fg6 once again it weakens black structure, but also in this situation gives counterplay on f2. So instead of taking the pawn, there is this nice move queen to g3. So basically eyeing this knight on c7, the idea of rook c1. And when the queen goes back to e7, we just put our queen to e5. So we are playing for domination. So this bishop is really great. The knight is awful. The pawn is weak here. So for example, the game can continue like rook f7, rook c1, rook d8, and let's say g3. So we keep this domination, and black is in really tough spot at this moment. Like, for example, next can be like rook c2, rook fc1, just increasing the pressure on the knight, and this e6 pawn requires constant defense. So it's much tougher to hold such position than with some activity in that rook and in that heavy piece position what I just showed. So in any case, it did not happen because black went for knight f4 in the game. I mean, it's a straight pawn sacrifice, but the hope is that in this opposite color, the bishop position, somehow black can hold. But to be honest, if it's a position without the rooks, so if you take all 4 rooks away from or down from the board, then I would even say that it's just a theoretical draw, or it's already like a drawish position, because then the drawish tendencies of opposite colored bishops are so huge. But with rooks on the board, it's actually completely different. So as long as there are heavy pieces, the combined attack against the light squares with the rook and bishop is even sometimes can make it much easier for the attacking side to win. So rook f6 was played, rook c1, rook b6, simply b3, bishop to d6, and rook c3. So for example, or you can already see some of these attacking ideas via the light squares. So black played king e7. Looks very logical. Instead, there was also bishop e5, but for example, rook h3, h6, f4, bishop d4, king h1. And, I mean, eventually black should lose this. Rook d3 will be played, rook d1, bishop c4, e5, g3, just improving the position. And once again, the main thing we shouldn't do, even if we trade a pair of rooks, it's okay, but definitely not both pair of rooks. I mean, ideally, we shouldn't trade any pair. So, but black played king e7. And now I would suggest you to stop the video for a minute or two and try to figure out how to win with white. It looks like that black is completely ready for rook f3 because it's rook f8. So trade is fine for black. Of course, we can make a slow move like g3 and keep our advantage and just slowly win. But after the next move, black already resigned the game. It was e5. It's a pretty spectacular move from Fridman. So the point is that if the bishop goes here or here, then we just enter with rook c7 and win more pawns. So that's hopeless. I mean, bishop b8 doesn't make any sense. We can just go rook c8 and pin the bishop. So obviously the question is that what happens if the bishop takes on e5? Then there is rook e1. So that's the difference you can see now, like very much highlighted by this tactical idea that, of course, without rooks, such moves like e5 do not exist. So here, if king f6, that's very easy to see because we just play rook f3 check, king has to move, and we pick up the bishop. And actually, the mate is following very, very soon. What is easier to blunder as black is that king d6 looks like saving the day, protecting this bishop and attacking this one on d5. But after rook d3, the game is over. So we have 2 threats at this moment. Bishop b7 discover check to win the rook, and bishop c4 check to force the king from the defense of the bishop and take the bishop for free. If black tries to solve it by playing rook to e8, then we don't, not only from b7 but also from f7, we can give a discover check and force resignation. So that was a pretty finish to the game, but again, the main point was just to show this trick that, by very natural moves, after move 7, black can already be in a very serious trouble.